Hello, I'm Professor Ben DeDominicis. Students typically call me Professor Ben. This is a introduction to the United States foreign policy class that I'm offering in fall of this year, 2020. And this is to be made available to everyone as they're the students are determining what classes they're going to take. So I was asked to prepare a video presentation that no more than 15 minutes, in which I'll talk about what US foreign policy, United States foreign policy class will involve. And so I think the best way to do that is to go through the documents that I was asked to discuss. Here is the form that I completed as part of this presentation. This is taken from the syllabus, which I will, of course, make available to everybody at the beginning of the class. It states that basically the U.S. foreign policy will be an introduction to the major themes and issues, as well as basic facts regarding U.S. foreign policy, of course, concentrating primarily on the 20th century, mid-20th century to the present. And but we'll also talk about the historical context about how the United States was formed, its conditions, because that was important for establishing important American political attitudes about themselves in relationship to the rest of the world, so-called American exceptionalism, for example. So we will also talk a bit about U.S. foreign policy long before the Second World War. The book will also, of course, that we'll be using is most recent edition came out this year, U.S. Foreign Policy, and this is the 6th edition of the book. And so this book is quite popular, evidently, because it's still in print, which means instructors want to use it. I have taken notes, extensive notes, basically rewrote the book in my own words with my own commentary also for each chapter in the book. And I will make those electronic Word files available to everybody. I'm assuming we're going to be meeting as a regular class, Mondays and Fridays. But we're waiting to see what happens with the COVID-19 pandemic control efforts. I just want to say that I think that this class can function very well also online. If it goes to 100% being online because of the virus outbreak, I think I can deal with that quite well. Those of you who've had me in other classes or know other students who've had me in other classes know that we're already using Facebook as a course website in my classes to post files and keep records there. It's not difficult to do that and expand on that. Some of the students who've had me in other classes know about, for example, we meet and work on drafts of your midterm papers in order to polish the English and to learn the material at the same time by writing about it and writing it at least 2 drafts. We can expand that to do that more than 1 week. We can do that a lot more. And we can do that online. I'm using Zoom right now to make this video presentation. And I can, as I'm, for example, sharing you this screen regarding the introduction to the class, I can share individually with each student meeting in a video conference my comments on their electronic draft of a paper that they've sent. So I could go through it with them right now, like I'm going through with you here, to show my comments, to ask them and interact with them about how to improve the midterm paper. So we've already got ideas about how we could do this all online if we had to. It would be, of course, a lot of work for me, but that's what I'm paid for. So I think, and as I already said, I have already put the chapters in this textbook into electronic form with my commentary. So you can see what my lecture comments and ideas would be. And so Don't worry if you're concerned about what kind of a class format we're going to have. I'm assuming once again that we're going to have a regular class format. We're going to be meeting twice a week, but in case we have to be flexible and move to an electronic format, it won't be a problem. I think the way I've been teaching this class is really useful for that. So, but to continue on. As I mentioned, some of you have been through my classes, that this midterm exam, this is a take-home paper exam. The students write a paper, they send it to me electronically. I write comments on it in the Microsoft track function, send it back, and then we meet and discuss my comments in my office typically. But we can do it through Zoom. We can do it through Zoom, and just me and one other student going through their paper, showing the paper this way. And we can do that, as I said, I've done that some semesters, I've done that twice. If necessary, I can do it every semester, of course, not writing a long paper, just very short papers, to meet individually with students. Some of you know my classes tend to be smaller, which is obviously nice for that kind of a format. So I don't think we have any problem meeting the challenges of this pandemic. I already asked you to write in a normal class a 150-word paragraph to send to me and to prepare for in-class debate. We can expand that, make that 200 words, 250 words, and I will write comments and send it back to you and just meet with you like this if we have to go to 100% online format. So. Like I said, it's not hard to adapt this format to this class to 100% online format. I think I can really, I've been thinking about that for a long time. We can really do that. I've been here since, in Korea, since February 11, when I got back from the US, and I've stayed here the whole time. And I think I will stay here until the start of the semester, because obviously, even if you do travel, it's difficult once you get back. The Korean government requires me, for example, to quarantine in my apartment here in International House for 14 days, which I can't do. So it means I'm not traveling. So I've been thinking a lot about these issues and how to respond to the challenges we face. And also to talk about your concerns about the class. Don't be concerned if your English is not perfect, if it's not native level proficiency. I will work with the students to improve their English. That's why this is on a midterm draft form. This can be adapted as well. I mean, those of you who had me last semester, or you might have known somebody who had me last semester, know that I met in the final exam period time, preparation time with students individually as well. So, I would meet with the students for 30 minutes. And so, that, again, part of the purpose here is to integrate the course material as topics to write and speak about in English, because developing your speaking skills and is tied up with developing your writing skills, right? You have to master more vocabulary, and you learn the vocabulary in English by writing about it. And then you have to use it actively by talking. Typically, we have a debate in class where it's an opportunity for students to come to the front of the class and debate each other in English, and they prepare for that. And, improving your speaking skills means improving your writing skills in order to improve your speaking skills. And I just have to be able to understand your main points. It does, your English doesn't have to be native proficiency for me to understand what you're saying. In fact, I often find that some of the best work I've gotten from students comes from the Korean students, because the Korean students, they have to think about every word they are using in English and be very self-aware of that word when they're trying to write in English. For somebody like me as a native speaker, I don't have to think about very much about my wording before I start speaking and writing, because it's my native language. But Korean students, because they have to think very specifically about the words they're going to use, it clarifies their thoughts. So I get really excellent papers from Korean students. And you know, of course, if there are international students in the class, they're graded separately. International students are graded separately from Korean students. So you don't have to worry about being evaluated according to the work of Canadian students, for example, who may be in the class. And typically, I do have a number of students who are from other countries, from Canada, commonly students from France, in the past, students from Italy. We'll see who will come in the fall. I mean, of course, Korea's gotten a lot of good coverage in the international media because of its effectiveness in dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, and might increase even further world interest in the miracle on the Han River and the Korean development model. Particularly since China is also doing quite well in dealing with the pandemic, as is Vietnam and Mongolia. And of course, the worst case examples of dealing with the pandemic include the United States. And so that'll be a theme in the class: the rise of China and the election, and of course, the election of Trump and the consequences in the United States of the election of Trump as president, contributing to the rise of China, will be discussed. But has accelerated, I think, the rise of China, and of course, we're seeing an escalation in the intensity of conflict in the relationship between the United States and China. And we'll look at the Cold War to look at, for example, what we can expect that to mean. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. And Soviet Union was a very different actor compared to China. China is a 94% one ethnic group, the Han Chinese. The Soviet Union was only 50% Russian. So the Soviet Union was not a nation state. So it's tend to be much more sluggish and slow in responding to American challenges and crises around the world. China will not act that way. China is a nation state like Japan, like Germany, like the United States. And so this is in some ways more dangerous, although in other ways less so, because the Soviet Union, the Americans, and we'll talk about this extensively in the class, right? The Americans tend to assume that the Soviet Union was a Russian version of Nazi Germany. And I'm supposed to show you some PowerPoint slides as part of this presentation. And maybe I should do that. And let's see. If we discuss, United States policy during the Cold War, the United States tended to assume that the Soviet Union was a Russian version of Nazi Germany. It was, as Ronald Reagan described it, a diabolical enemy. That the Soviet Union was trying to spread communism as a cover for its Russian imperialism. And it stereotyped the Soviet Union as an evil actor, much like Mordor in Lord of the Rings, and Stalin was Sauron. But China, of course, because of the Cold War, has been much more integrated with the American economy, obviously, many times more tightly integrated with the American economy than the Soviet Union economy ever was. So many farmers, so many manufacturers in America depend upon China, interrelate with China. I don't think there's any concern that the Americans really have that, despite being ruled by the Communist Party, that the Communist Party of China is an ideological threat as in terms of communism being appealing to the world. Maybe the meaning of communism has changed, but I mean, the general view is that the Chinese motivation is to develop their economy within a capitalist framework. And that means trade and business with the rest of the world, that they're business people. Maybe the notion of communism has changed insofar as it is a form basically now in China as a form of corporatist organization of the economy to maximize efficiency, national efficiency, and achieving national interests. And that's what I've been working on. So in a sense, there is this alternative to the Washington consensus, the neoliberal view promoted by Bill Clinton after the Cold War ended. The Chinese are obviously pointing to their model. Look how well we're doing with dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Look how quickly and rapidly we've developed our country. People in Africa, you want to develop as well. Follow our model, not the American model. We have big challenges with climate change that are going to make the pandemic catastrophe look minor in comparison. And who's better able to deal with that? A country that elects Donald Trump or the Chinese Communist Party model. So in that sense, there's the competition, but it's about who's best and most effective in developing their economy and using capitalist framework and trade. And that's very different from the Cold War. So we look for similarities and differences, but we do look to the Cold War for experience in trying to understand what this rise of China and a conflict in the United States will look like. A conflict that's obviously shaped fundamentally by the nuclear setting, which emerged during the Cold War. So that's it for now, and I am going to send this off to the Center for Teaching and Learning, and hopefully they'll load it up on the website for you to all see. So thank you very much, and I think I will stop the session here. See you in the fall. Bye.